So we've got a really good topic I think is excellent for accountants today. So we're talking about, for accountants, networking for introverted accountants. I know personally I'm a fairly extroverted person, but when you talk about networking, selling, things like that, it's always kind of this uncomfortable feeling. And so I'm personally interested in learning a lot about this today. So let's go through a couple of administrative things and we'll jump into it. I'm going to be the facilitator today. So I am one of Summit CPA Group's virtual CFOs. I'm one of a team of people. My full-time role is assisting clients as their CFO. It's one of the really important niches that we work in. Let me give you a few of administrative and housekeeping things for today. So today is a 1 credit hour course. Mon, if you don't mind flipping to the next slide here, a 1 hour course that we have. You do have to attend all 50 minutes. There will be 3 polling questions. The first one's going to launch really soon here. If you've done that, then the CPE certificates will be emailed within the next week or so. And we do have a question function. So people can't speak during the conference, but you can ask us questions. I'll tell you the most common question I get is what I'm about to tell you. Can you get a replay of the slides? Can you see what these slides look like? Things like that. Those will be emailed out tomorrow. So maybe that prevents one of our questions, but questions you have, we'll try to answer during the session. I mentioned I work for Summit CPA Group. Tell you a little bit about our firm. We started 20 years ago, and then in 2004, we started providing CFO and back office services to our clients. About 9 years ago, we went as a fully distributed firm. So our entire firm is remote, lots of flexibility with where the employees are, and also a ton of flexibility with our clients who are mostly in the US, but also outside the US. And I know distributed firms is a very common thing now, sort of post-pandemic. And then as of April this year, Summit joined Andrews CPA and Advisors. So we're now a division of that organization and really excited about what we can get with being with a more traditional firm. A larger firm gives us a whole lot more capability than what we had before. And so we're excited about that. Okay, Monica Parkin. Monica is an author and director of community engagement with Invis Pacific View Mortgages. I hope I said that correctly. We are really excited about what she's done. She's also, as I mentioned, an author. I think Kelly's going to talk a little bit about that at the same time. I'm going to launch that very first polling question.
Perfect. Yeah, I am super excited to have Monica here today. For those of you who are connected with me on LinkedIn, you may know this about me, but I love books and I talk about books a lot. And sometimes I get requests from authors to review their books, and Monica was one of those authors who reached out to me, and I'm really glad she did. I've got a copy of her book here, Overcoming Awkward. One of the things I mentioned in my review of the book is that Overcoming Awkward, the title got me for sure, but the subtitle even better describes what the book is about: The Introvert's Guide to Networking, Marketing, and Sales. And I also think, I just kept thinking of the book, How to Win Friends and Influence People, which is very popular in the business world. And I feel like that title would also fit very, very well with this book. Monica talks so much about, in her book, she talks about how to build your relationships in your business, how to put yourself out there on social media, or go to networking events. And I don't know if Monica, you'll tell the story about the business cards and how you collect them and then you throw them away, but great story in the book about how she realized like that wasn't really effective, and what she learned and how she became successful in growing her business. And so I was really excited to bring Monica on because I think that her message really speaks well to the accounting community. A lot of accountants are introverts or are scared of the word sales, but Monica really talked about how we can not be scared of that word and just be ourselves, and how we can grow our business by being ourselves. So Monica, let you take it from there.
And Monica, the first poll question that you asked, so let me see if I can share this. I think I can't share the results. Okay. You can see the result. I hope you can see the results. So very similar, 44% in those second two. I had no idea networking was going to be a part of it, and I thought it'd be mostly accounting stuff. What's your reaction to that? Is that a surprise for what you see in the audience?
It's not a surprise to me, because I'm going to talk about my own experience with that, but that really doesn't surprise me at all. I think a lot of people go into these fields because they really enjoy numbers. They enjoy that problem solving piece. That's something they just want to bite their teeth into, and forget about like that whole relationship building piece. But what was your experience in the industry, Tom or Kelly? How did that go for you? What was your
I think
surprise when you arrived?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think when I came into doing accounting, one of the things that made me think maybe it wasn't for me is I didn't think it would be nearly as much interpersonal reaction. My thought of accounting was sort of behind the scenes, a lot of crunching numbers, analyzing things, looking at things, and not nearly as much advising and working with people. And so I think that was my perception.
Yeah. How about you, Kelly?
Yeah, so I am not an accountant, but I am very much an introvert. So I think anyone in our community knows how I will put videos out there on TikTok, LinkedIn. I'll do these. I'll put myself out there in ways that are very uncomfortable for me, but I force myself to do it and become more comfortable, with time. But yeah, I am not an accountant, so I can't speak to that part of it.
Yeah, thanks. And I work with a lot of engineers too, and it's a very similar thing. They thought that they
Sure.
didn't realize what a huge percentage of their time they would actually have to spend building their business, talking to people, things like that. And I love that you said, even though you're scared, you put yourself out there, because, it's like a muscle, and the more you use it, the better it grows, or like learning a second language, the more you practice it, the more fluent you become in it. But yeah, I also did not get the memo when I decided. So I'm a mortgage broker. When I decided to become a mortgage broker, this is what I thought I was going to be doing. Like, I thought I'd be sitting at home in my home office, hanging out with my cat, having a great time, because the mortgage broker that I had used for like a decade, I'd never talked to her on the phone. I'd never met her in person. We'd had all our communications by email. Because she was a really good mortgage broker and she matched her communication style to mine, she realized that I never picked up the phone when she said, let's have a call. And then I never offered to come down to her office. So she was really smart that way. She's like, okay, this lady doesn't like to communicate that way. We're just going to communicate by email. That's what we did. So I had no idea. I first show up at the office. So I take my course, I do all the stuff. I'm like, this is a perfect career for me. I can just like dig my head in, stay home, hang out with a cat and a dog, maybe some chickens, and it's going to be great. It's the best career ever, right? So I find a brokerage, I interview a bunch, I land somewhere, I show up at the office the first day, and I'm like, okay, where's my first client? And they're like, no, Monica, this is not how it works. And, this is a look on my face. I was like, what? They're like, you got to get out there and build your own client base. You got to build relationships. You got to network. You got to get to know people. And I almost quit that day on the spot. Like, I was like, really? Like, I remember going home and talking to my husband, like, I made a big mistake. Like, this is bad. I don't know if I'm going to continue. He's like, well, like, you're a grown up, you do what you want, but like, you spend a lot of time, a lot of money on this. Like, you might want to see it through for a couple of days. So I kind of gave myself this, yeah, okay, I'll do it for 6 months and we'll see how it goes. And so the office said, well, good news. There's a networking event coming up. There's a Chamber of Commerce dinner coming up. We're all going to be going. And I don't know about you, but as soon as they said, networking dinner, my thoughts went back to my first year of marketing class in university, because in university at marketing class, our final end of the year project was go to a networking event, bring a bunch of cards with you, go shake everybody's hand, hand out as many cards as you can, and there's a prize for the person that gave out the most cards. And that was probably like the worst night of my life, right? So when they're like, yeah, we're going to do that. We're going to do marketing class all over again. Bring your cards. You can hand them out. The good news was they said, we're all going. We'll all sit at the same table. And I'm like, okay, there's going to be people I know there. It's going to be more comfortable. So I go to that networking event. I walk in the door. None of my coworkers are there. There's all these people I don't know. So what does Monica do? Right back up to my car. And I'm like, no, can't do this, cannot do this. And as I'm sitting in my car thinking about, like, could I be sick? Maybe I didn't find a babysitter. Like, what is the valid excuse for not being here and getting ready to drive away? My coworker shows up and she like pulls up beside me. Oh, great, you're ready to go in. And so, now I got to be all in. Now I'm there. So I'm like, okay, you can do this. Like, you can do this. You did it once, you can do it again. And off I go. And I'm like, okay, get myself all pumped up. I'm like, I'm a rock star. I can do this. I'm shaking hands. I'm talking to people. I'm pushing through that. I'm just using the adrenaline to push myself through. I'm telling everybody what a great mortgage broker I am. Do you know what rates are? I can probably get you a better rate than your bank. And do you need a mortgage? And do you need a mortgage? And have you thought about refinancing? And like this totally obnoxious person looking back. But at the time, I thought I was killing it, right? And so I go home that night. I'm super proud of myself. I'm like, look at all the cards I got. Like, I would get an A+ in that course. My professor would be so proud. I've got all these business cards. But the thing is, I'm not like a person that likes a lot of clutter. I don't like a lot of stuff around. I start looking at the cards and I'm like, so what am I going to do with these cards? Like, I don't know these people. I don't really remember their names. I don't really know anything about their businesses because I didn't really ask them. I was so busy talking about myself. I'm like, you know what? I think I'm just going to throw them in the fire. So I tossed them in the fire. And that was all cool. And then I'm walking away, and all of a sudden, it's the look on my face again. Oh, if I threw out their cards, that means they're throwing out my cards. And all that handshaking I did, all that talking about myself, talking about my business, it probably did nothing to build my business, and that's that moment I realized that Kelly's talking about, where like, this kind of networking is not going to work for me. It works for some people. I will give those people credit. There are people that can work a room and make really good connections in a short amount of time, and they have that gift for doing that. But that was not my gift in that moment, and I had to find another way to do that. So I tried. There has to be a better way. So I tried a bunch of things. I put a wrap on my car. I did these Facebook ads. I did Google ads. I was buying leads. I was doing all kinds of stuff. And it was having big fat zero results, right?
Even the look on your face when you describe this, Monica, you looks distasteful as you're describing each of those. It's so funny.
Yeah. And like, I'm 8 months in, and, my broker manager would wander in once in a while. He's like, so you got anything on the go yet? Like, they don't want to crush my hopes, but they're also like, you got anything, and my husband stopped saying, when you get a new client, now he's saying, well, if you get a client sometime. And I'm like, what do you mean if, dude? Like, I can do this, but really, even though I'm outwardly saying I'm going to do this, I'm starting to feel like, I made a bad choice. This is not a good career for me. Luckily, in the mortgage industry, though, we have this thing called WIMI, which is Women in the Mortgage Industry. Someone created it, and it's just we also have a general mortgage broker page, but it's a place where women in the mortgage industry can just share you guys probably have forums like this in your industry, but where we share our trials and our problems. You can hook up with a mentor. You can ask a question. Hey, what about this lender? Have you ever seen this product? Where would I put this file? This weird anomaly. What should I do? It's just a place to be supportive of each other. And so I thought, there's a lot of really, really smart people in this group. They're really successful. I'm going to reach out to some of them, and I'm going to ask them, like, what are they doing? Because clearly whatever I'm doing is not working for me. And so I called the first one up, and I said, I'm really struggling. I'm doing all the stuff. I'm handing out business cards, and I'm advertising, and I'm paying for leads. My car looks amazing. It's got my face all over it. Like, I don't know why no one's calling me except to tell me that I'm driving too slow. Like, those are the only calls I'm getting. Or actually, one time I got a call from someone because I didn't put my card all the way into the thing at the shopping center, and they noticed that I hadn't done that. And so they sent me a
your phone number was on your car.
What an awful person I was. So that was the day I decided to take the wrap off my car. But so yeah, that's a lesson there too. If you're gonna wrap your car, which is probably really effective for a lot of people, you got to be a really good and considerate driver. And so it definitely sharpened up my driving skills. And you should have a new driver that's also driving your car sometimes, because my daughter would get cards handed to her all the time. Hey, I need a mortgage. And I'm like, that never happens to me. But yeah. So anyways, I call these people up. I call the first one up, and I'm, what am I doing wrong? And she says, Monica, here's the secret. You just got to be you. You got to be your authentic self. And, this is a look on my face. Sorry, that's what she said. Another face shot. This is what I felt about that advice. I was like, this is a bunch of crap. Like, people told me that in grade 1. Just be yourself, Monica. You go make some friends. It's not really working for me. I'm being myself, and it's not working. And so then I called another person because I didn't like that answer. Same thing. You just got to be you. And I was like, they just want all the business, right? They want me to fail. That's why they're giving me this crappy advice. Like, give me the good advice, give me the real secret advice. And same thing, called another one, same thing. So I'm like, you know, what I'm doing isn't working. Maybe I should try this advice. So here's the problem though. You see these pictures behind me, right? Monica's kind of an animal lover. The other problem is my authentic self is a freaking crazy goat lady. Like, I love goats. I love baby goats. I love everything goats. I love chickens. I love cows. I'm like this nutty animal lover. And so I decided, you know what? I'm just going to let my inner weirdo shine. Like, I've got nothing left to lose. I'm not getting any business. I'm going to just put myself out there. Me out in the barn cleaning up the goat poop in the yard and the chicken on my shoulder and all the things that are really fun and interesting to me going to my kids' robotic tournaments and all the stuff that's authentic, crazy me, the part of me that I've actually never showed anyone in my life before. And, you know, crazy and magical things started to happen. And one of the things that happened, so the other thing I did is I created this tagline. I call myself Mortgage Monica. So when I'm on Facebook or Instagram or TikTok or Twitter, it's always Mortgage Monica posting, but then posting my authentic self. And I didn't know if this was really actually working or not. I was like, whatever, I got nothing to lose. I'm just going to be me. People can take it or leave it. And so one day I dropped my little newborn baby goats off at the vet. I normally would go in with them and get their shots and stuff, but they're like, we're super busy, we're swamped. Just leave them here, come back in an hour. So I came back in an hour and the receptionist is like, oh my God, you won't believe what happened. Are you Mortgage Monica? I'm like, yes, actually, I am Mortgage Monica. And they're like, 3 people asked if these were Mortgage Monica's goats. They're like, I think that one's Butterscotch. I've seen her on Instagram before. That's Mortgage Monica's goat. And so, you know, by being me, by, you know, letting my inner weirdo shine, by putting out there what I love, people connected me to the things that they also loved, right? And interesting things started to happen. And one thing that started to happen is my phone actually started to ring. I started to get clients, and they weren't the clients that I was originally looking for, but I started to find my niche, right? My niche. And what would happen is I would start to get calls from people that have farm properties, that have rural properties, and they'd be like, listen, it's really hard to finance these rural properties. Can you help me? And I'm like, no, but I didn't say that. I was like, of course I can. And then I go talk to someone in my office and I'm like, what's the deal with rural properties? And I'm like, they're really hard to do. I'm like, well, I've got a client and I need to learn how. So, oh, you should call this person. I get all the scoop. I find all the answers. I go back, I talk to them. They have a few more questions. Again, be like, you know, that's a good question. Things change all the time. Let me just find out. And I go back anyway. So I got that file done. First file, Yahoo, finally got a file closed. And from that came another one and another one and another one. And all of a sudden, you know, my phone is ringing, my email's dinging, out of me just kind of being authentic me and finding this sort of narrower focus. All of a sudden, I start to kind of develop some expertise in an area. And this is one of the things, if you're just starting out or you're not starting out, that you need to ask yourself, you know, what makes you different from everyone else, right? You might not be the crazy goat lady, you know, that one might be taken, but, you know, what is the thing that you're really passionate about? Because when you find the thing that you're passionate about, that's really interesting for you, you get to start to take a really deep dive. And one of the mistakes that I made in the beginning and that I see a lot of people make, I'm just going to minimize that poll so I'm not looking at it.
Sure. Yep. And you can see, just to let people know, I did just launch another poll question.
Yeah. So there's a poll question about this, right?
Yep.
But one of the things that people do is they try to be everything to everyone. Like for me, I was like, I can do refinances, I can do new home buyers, I can do purchases, I can do bad credit, I can do good credit, I can do everything. But the problem with that is you never get really good at any one thing, and you never really get known for any one thing. You're just dealing with these random leads as they come in. For me personally, part of networking for me isn't just that handing out cards, but it's creating warm leads. So people that already know you, people that trust you, people that you have something in common with. And when you dig deep into a topic, into an area, you get to develop this understanding and this skill that other people in your area might not know. So for me, it was farm properties, right? I got to know, and now I do other stuff too. I kind of moved away from that because that was a really hard thing to do. But I could start to preemptively know what was going to come up. So for me as a mortgage broker, I know if it's a rural property that I need, there's only certain appraisal firms that will do that. And out of those appraisal firms, you know, when I'm ordering it, I know they'll only use the value of the first 5 acres. I know they won't use any outbuildings. I know at this stage I need to do this, at this stage I need to do that. I start to develop skills and knowledge that no one else in my area has. So I start to remove hiccups from the equation. Hiccups that would normally happen, they're not happening because I see stuff coming and I see oh, this is going to be a problem. I need to deal with this. Oh, I need to order this. Oh, I need to tell the client about this thing that's coming up. When I dig into something I'm passionate about, I really get to provide a higher level of service. And I'm going to just pause for a minute and ask Tom and Kelly if that's been your experience also, and how, you know, does that resonate for you?
Yeah, for me, go ahead, Kelly.
Just for Summit, I was going to say in general, you know, Summit got very specific about the niche of working with digital agencies. And when that happened, we really became the kind of the thought leaders, the ones that the you know, the firm basically that people would come to and ask to speak and ask for content. And, you know, they wanted our expertise. And that was because we had become very, you know, very specific in that niche. I don't know if, Tom, were you going to say something else? Like something different?
I agree with you on that completely. And maybe to emphasize some of the value that when you work with, and you probably found this, Monica, when you work with rural, once you start working with multiple in that kind of a niche, then you can start looking across. And it didn't take very long when clients would come and say, we're having this problem. 90% of them are having the same problem. And so it's really nice that you can say, here's what I've seen other people try to do. Monica, if I can make one comment about the poll, it's perfectly distributed with, well, in fact, let me just share quickly. 25% saying, yep, I have one, 50% working on it, and 25% saying, no, I'd like to blend in.
Do you think, though, I have read the advice that, like, and I don't remember what book it was, that's bad of me, but where it talks about, like, at first you have to basically take everything you can get, right?
Yeah.
Like you kind of, like you said, you have you have to say yes to everything at first until you start learning, you know, where you, like where it makes the most sense to become specialized, and then, you know, start kind of moving in that direction. So it sounds like some people in the group here are kind of in that phase of like trying to work on that niche and make that happen.
Yeah. And sometimes you don't know what you're good at or what you're interested in until you've done it, right? So if I'd walked in the beginning and said, I love first-time home buyers, I'm only going to work with first-time home buyers, well, then I wouldn't have been willing to take that call about the farm property, and then I wouldn't have been able to learn more. So I think you find your niche as you go through and you solve problems and you start to figure out what you're good at. But I'll tell you, the other thing it lets you do is it lets you create this amazing customer journey for your clients, right? So because you can start to see what's coming up. You know, you need this at this point, and this at this point. You need to follow up about this at this point. For you as accountants, I don't know what exactly that would look like, but I know there's going to be markers in that customer journey that you can now map out. And I'm going to send an email reminding them about this at this stage. I'm going to ask for these documents here. It's a month before this thing happens. Does that? I see Tom nodding your head, right?
Yes. And in fact, I would make the point that the niches that Kelly and I talked about with our firm, which is true, is very industry specific. But many accountants would say their niche is more in, I'm really good at tax preparation or tax strategy or maybe audit planning. And that can be very detailed. And I agree with you, Monica. You can work on lots of things. And maybe you say, I'm really good at this and I enjoy it. If you do lots of things with tax strategy, maybe you're saying there's not a particular industry niche. I'm really good at clients who look like this, and it can be all sorts of businesses that are in there. But they find the most joy. And when they get good at that, everyone's coming and saying, boy, if you have this need, go talk to that person because they're really good at that. And you don't have to have this huge menu. And completely to your point, then you know when certain things come up, if that's the kind of service you deliver, here's that sort of life cycle of things people would need. And doing that, I think could really, it would come out pretty easily for people.
Yeah. And I know there's probably someone in the audience thinking, what does this have to do with networking, right? But it's that idea that networking is like also part of figuring out who you are and how can you stand out from the crowd? How can you be a thought leader, and how can you build relationships? And you don't just build relationships by talking to people. You also build relationships by being really good at what you do and getting referrals from that, and that ability to provide this really amazing experience, checking all the boxes. not missing anything, and then saying, you know what, I've got this accountant that's just phenomenal at blah, blah, blah. That's who you want to work with. Being known for that is another kind of networking. And you're right, Tom, it can be, a niche within the industry, like tax planning. It can even be a demographic. Like some people specifically work with seniors, or some people specifically work with new professionals, or even really narrow, like work with physicians or doctors. Like there is so many ways that you can find that focus, and it doesn't always have to be one focus either. Or within a firm, you can have multiple focuses. This person does this person does this, but starting to work towards finding that, it really is a kind of networking, A, because you're building referrals, and B, because like Kelly said, you become that thought leader. You become the person that people think of when they think of that thing. And then when you are marketing, because it's not that you shouldn't do marketing, but when you're doing it, you can really do it in a targeted way. And when the questions come in, you can answer them. Right in the beginning, I could have created marketing about anything, but I can answer the questions that came in. So being able to respond quickly and have the right answers is helpful too. Yeah. So, and the other thing is, it's exciting. You come across more authentically. You come across more passionate when you're talking about something you're excited about. So the other thing is, don't choose a niche that you think is going to be good for you. Choose a niche that you're actually excited about, because when you're excited about it and you're interested in it, it opens up doors that you don't even know were there. And it also makes you appear more authentic, right? And it's that authenticity that is at the core of how introverts network, of what they're really, really good at, is being authentic and building connections one person at a time on a really deep level. Like that is their superpower. So just to recap here, sorry, I put my face right in the middle, so I didn't feel like I was looking off to the side. We all have that habit of looking at ourselves when we're talking. But yeah, so traditional networking, well, okay, I just let my little ego pop out there. I have a habit of looking at myself when I'm talking.
I do the same.
Won't speak for everybody else. So just to recap that, so that traditional networking, it's not for everyone, but it's not the only way to do things. There are many, many different ways. And this is just recapping this section. Don't worry, we're going to keep going. People connect to us best when we show who we really are, like our authentic self. The other thing that happens when, just to go off on a sidebar, but when we're not being our real self, when we're pretending to be someone else, it opens up all this background noise in our brain, right? And we become more awkward. It's like when you're lying to your parents and you're trying to remember all the different lies, and then you get caught up in them. The same thing when we're pretending to be someone we're not. It's like you're a computer and you got all these windows open and you're just not as engaged, you're not as connected, because you're thinking about trying to remember who you're supposed to be instead of just being who you are. So if you want to be natural, you want to be relaxed, you want to feel less awkward, then you got to be you. And finding out what your passion is, will help you find your niche, and that will help you stand out and deliver more value. So that, I think, is a really cool conversation. Social media has become a really big piece of marketing, and I wanted to spend a little bit of time talking about that. Some people love it, some people hate it. It can be a very polarizing topic sometimes. I happen to love it as an introvert because I can hide behind a computer screen and connect to people without actually, going out in person. Not everyone feels that way. But one thing I want to tell you about social media that I've learned is a little sprinkle of business in there is all you need. So you probably all had this experience where a friend opens a new business or they're starting something new, and there's social media that used to be a lot about them, or it used to be this kind of nice, enjoyable place to go see pictures of them and see what they're up to, all of a sudden becomes buy this product and check this out, and I'm doing this and I'm doing that, and look at this award I won, and it becomes all about them and all about business, and it feels like this hard sell. And then before you know it, you're like just discreetly unfollowing them because you just feel like you're being spammed. That's what we got to watch out for, right? Because even if someone wants your product, even if they love your product, like say I'm shopping for a cake and I love icing. Icing is my favorite thing in the world. Like it's my absolute favorite thing in the world. I go into a cake shop and they feed me this big slab of icing with no cake on it. I'm going to have one bite and I'm going to be like, okay, that's too much. I'm done. The same thing on social media. If you just business topic, business, people are like, even if I want product that you're selling, you're giving me too much of it. So I think of the cake as you, your authentic self, what's going on in your life, what you're interested in, how you're involved in your community, things that matter to people. That's got to be 90% of your social media. And then your business, what you're doing is a little tiny sprinkle, like just give people a little taste of it, enough that they know what you do and you occasionally remind them what you do. But it's not a place to sell your services. It's just a place to say, hey, by the way, this is who I am. And if you need me, this is what I do. And it's a way to trigger that desire to reach out, rather than a place to, hey, you need your taxes done, call me. Hey, you need your taxes done, call me, which is probably a very cliche accounting thing that I just used. But it's that idea that you just need a few sprinkles.
Yeah. I think we should have had a poll question right there that was like, who is going to eat cake after this webinar? Because that made me really hungry for cake. I just want to say.
Or who got distracted and already walked away to grab something.
If I triggered anyone there that's not eating cake, my apologies.
If we're going to blame their disregarding their diet on you.
Yeah. I actually haven't eaten cake for a couple of years. Hopefully I won't eat it after this webinar. But here's the other thing about social media. So a universal truth is that people notice people who notice them, right? Mm-hmm. As soon as someone reaches out to me and says, hey, I read your book, it was awesome. Or, hey, check out this thing that Monica's doing or whatever. Then all of a sudden I'm like stalking them. I'm like Googling them. Who is this person that likes me? Who are they? What are they doing? And all of a sudden I'm interested in them. I want to see what they're doing. It's human nature. We notice the people that notice us, right? Mm-hmm. My publicist sent Kelly my book to review. She's like, yeah, I'd love to review it. And then she posted my review. I'm like, who is this Kelly person, right? And then when she says, hey, would you like to come on our webinar? I could have said, I'm too busy, or actually, this is what I charge. I'm like, no, yeah, heck yeah, I want to do this. I like this Kelly person. When you notice people, they notice you. And so the other thing about social media is spend less time talking about yourself, more time noticing other people. It is free. It is cheap. You can like their posts. If they got something going on, you can share it. You can leave a review. Mm-hmm. There's a million different things that you can do. I think I'm going to talk about that later, so I'm not going to talk about the review thing, but if I forgot to put that slide in, I'll come back to it. But yeah, there's a lot of different ways that you can notice people on social media. And the beautiful thing about it is, like, if you just, not that you shouldn't just pick up the phone and tell someone they're awesome, but if you actually say that on social media, they don't just see it, all their friends see it too. Other people see it too. And you are elevating their business, right? You're doing something good for them. And that starts to create that feeling of reciprocity, which you're not doing just so they'll do you a favor. That is the wrong reason to do it, but it does naturally create that feeling of reciprocity. And I just said that. Look at that. Same slide, same message. Social media is a great place to do that. And if you're going to use social media for something, that is a great thing to use it for. And that'll build that tag function, right? To tag people when someone does something cool. Tag them in it. Make sure everyone else sees it too, how awesome they are.
Mm-hmm. I think that's one of the hardest things on social media. It's like we get so caught up in, like, I got to post something. I have to, or you want to see your notifications. Like, what if people said, how many people liked it, right? But I see that a lot from social media, social media people who will say that one of the things to do is every day go through and like so many posts. Like, so if LinkedIn is your place for, the accounting world, go through and like or comment on other people's posts. And for me, I would have to make it like a task. Like, every day I'm going to make it my goal to do this many, which seems like, I don't know, maybe disingenuous, but like, really, it's like, it's making the time to go out and notice people and not just be trying to get people to notice you, but creating that engagement with them.
Yeah, because it is that bounce back effect. You notice them, then suddenly they notice you, and to do it authentically, right? Not just be like, okay, I'm going to click like on the first 20 posts. Right. But I'm going to look at these posts, and if this really resonates with me, I'm going to make a comment that's meaningful to me, and I'm going to engage in this conversation. I'm going to be part of the conversation, part of the community. Yeah, absolutely. The other thing that's super easy is, send a little thank you note or whatever. It seems like a little thing, but I remember when I was a kid, my mom's, it was actually her accountant. I was in 4-H club with my bunny rabbits or whatever, and I'd won some prize and I got my name in the newspaper. They cut out that little article in the paper, they wrote a little card and they mailed it and said, congratulations, blah, blah, blah. My mom still uses that accounting firm because they made her feel so good that her kid won this competition. And she tells everybody to go use them because they noticed her and they did this little extra gesture that cost, it was the price of a stamp and 5 minutes of their time. So just like Kelly's talking about, take time to like posts or whatever, take time to notice what your clients, what your colleagues, what other people are doing in your community and say, hey, you're doing awesome. That's great. Or thanks so much for, you spent a lot of time on this thing for me. Thanks for doing that. And people really notice that and they remember it. Like it sticks in their head and they remember it.
Monica, part of that story that resonates with me is the written communication, which I think is much more powerful now with everything being electronic. Yeah. Taking a minute to write a personal note and mail it to someone, I think can have a lot bigger impact than it used to, because we're just not used to getting those kinds of things.
100%. When I get a personal note nowadays, like it'll sit on my desk for a month. It's like a trophy that I've got. It's a really big deal. Like someone took the time to do that in a world where it's often people don't take the time.
Yeah.
So yeah, very good point. Yeah. And here's another thing that I didn't do enough of, and I didn't realize the power of, that also, again, we need to do authentically, but get out there and volunteer, right? There's a million different things that you can get involved with. But what I want to tell you about volunteering is there is a right way and a wrong way to do it. So the right way is to choose the stuff that you're excited about, that you want to show up, do stuff that you have time to do, that aligns with your skill sets that you're good at, where you can really make a contribution, where you can be noticed, where you can feel good about it. You know that you did something really amazing in your community. The wrong way, and I've seen this done, is people just start, there's this realtor in my community who will remain nameless, but they started out as a realtor and then they're like, I'm going to volunteer everywhere. I'm going to get my name out there. So they did, and they volunteered for this and that, and they volunteered to be my kids' hockey team manager. They never showed up to a game. They never returned an email. They screwed up the schedule. They pissed everyone off. And, within 2 years, they were no longer a realtor. And they're like, I don't know why. I did all kinds of stuff. I was out in the community. But everyone that had an experience with them had a bad experience with them. So instead of being like, yeah, this person's awesome, they're out in their community, it's like, this person's not showing up. They're not doing what they said they would do. They don't have time. They're overcommitted. So you're better off to pick one thing. If you don't have a lot of time, pick one thing, do something you're excited about, that you love, that you want to be involved with. Go in 100%, do a great job, build great relationships, and those will generate referrals for you. You go in, you do a bad job, you don't have time, you're just not feeling it. It's gonna show up in your relationships and in your referrals. So it is a wonderful way to network, and it can be a horrible way to network. You got to choose how to do that. I see Todd not on your head.
I think it's really good advice. You're also making me think back to the end of college and beginning of my career, where people wanted things on their resume. And so you might volunteer for lots of things because you thought that it would look good to say, I had this role. And there were plenty of people who didn't do it for the right reason. So sure, you put down that you were an officer in such and such club and you did nothing. So you really got nothing out of it to do, except for you could maybe explain to someone who didn't know what you did that you tell them you were great. I think you have a really good point. I wonder also, to the extent that you volunteer, not directly looking for something out of it, right? Exactly. Maybe it is networking, meeting people, but it's not, I'm going to join this because there's this one person, I'm going to get an outcome. I think if you go in wanting to help because you're interested in it, you probably get a lot more benefit out of it than being single-minded with an outcome.
Yeah, and I'm going to cover that point in a minute. And I see that I've got about 10 minutes left, so I'm gonna start talking a little further here.
Sure.
Okay.
But committees, right? Whether that's a volunteer committee, an industry committee, that is an amazing way to actually showcase your skills. Same thing as the volunteering, the right way and a wrong way to do it. But when you sit on a group with 4 or 5 people over months at a time, like, you get to know them on a really deep level. They get to see your communication skills. They get to see what you're good at. And again, that can backfire. So if you're the micromanager or you're the bossy person or whatever, they might be like, actually, I don't want to work with that person. So sitting on stuff that you care about with people that you care about and and adding value, being coachable, being part of the solution rather than part of the problem is, I have so much business that's come from sitting on committees because I've just built those relationships, and maybe not even always business, but people that I can call on to help for something, right? A client's got a problem. Oh, this person deals with that, and this person does this, and someone I can pick up the phone and just go, hey, Bob, that thing, blah, blah, blah. I wonder if you can help me with this. And so that is another fantastic thing. So speaking to Tom's point, I know this just looks like pictures of houses, right? Here's this little analogy I like to use. So say, because I'm a mortgage broker and I'm often speaking to people in the real estate industry, but I think this will really be relatable for you guys. I can have the most beautiful house in the neighborhood, right? I can have this beautiful lawn, that wonderful place. It's clean, it's spotless, it's immaculate. Let's pretend that's my business, right? I've worked really hard on it. I've got all these clients. I've got all the systems. I've got all the processes. I'm really good at what I do. I look across the street and my neighbor's house looks like this. It's falling down. It looks like crap. I can be like, oh, well, too bad for them. My house looks great. Or I can be like, hey, do you need some help painting that thing? Can I help you mow the lawn? If their house looks like crap, what happens to my property value, right? When my neighbor's house looks like crap, my property value tanks no matter what kind of care I'm taking of it. And the same with my business, right? If the other businesses in my community are not thriving, if my industry is not thriving, if my community isn't thriving, my business will eventually stop thriving. And so that's why I need to show up and volunteer and be on committees, be involved in my industry, do all that stuff, not just to get the business, but because when all the businesses around me are healthy, my business is healthier. And it's, we do it as a community, we do it together. And there's a reason why humans have communities and why we don't live isolated lives, because we survive and we thrive together. And so just to recap that one, right? Volunteer in your community, give back your time. For me, it's often sponsorship. I'll tell clients, I'm not going to give you a closing gift, but if your kid's hockey team needs something or you need a donation, whatever, come see me. I'd rather give it to my community than just give you a card for pizza. That's how I give my thank you, is I say, come see me when your kid's team needs something and I'll be there for you. And yeah, getting involved in your industry, because that's part of that whole neighborhood equation. Because, when you give back to your community gives back to you. I have my own little podcast, and one of the people I interviewed on it got the Citizen of the Century Award. And when I asked her what was the single biggest thing that grew her business that helped her do that, she said, it's my community. My community's given me everything. And so be a giver, not a taker, right? Because the givers get, and takers eventually just fizzle out. And last point is just don't be a jerk, right? Again, we think about networking as that walking around shaking hands, but networking happens in every single interaction you make through the day. It is that person you're yelling on at the other end of the phone because you didn't get your way, or they were late, or something happened. They remember you. They talk to their friends about you. The kid at the drive-thru that screwed up your order and you yell at them, they go home and they talk to their friend. That mortgage Monica lady, she was a freaking nut bar. She freaked out at me. They're like, well, we were thinking about a mortgage from her, but now we're not. One of my other jobs is I'm a consultant at a large veterinary hospital. And the people in that clinic will, they're often a lot of young people. They're buying their first homes, or they're thinking about who to use for different services, and they will sit around the lunchroom and they'll talk about clients, right? One girl was looking for a new realtor, and she's like, well, we've got a lot of clients that are realtors. I could use one of them. Well, don't use so-and-so. He threw his prescription back in my face when it was wrong. And this guy always shows up late for his appointments, and then he blames us. And, oh, that person's super nice. They bring us cookies at Christmas, and they're always thoughtful, and they're always on time. And when we're late, they don't mind. You know what? I'm going to use that person. Like, that is also networking. How you show up every day in every interaction of your life is a form of networking. So show up always as if you're at work. Show up always as if the person in front of you is a client, whether they're 12 years old or 90 years old, or they're wearing their work clothes or they're wearing their suit. Wherever you are making an impression on people, whether you know it or not. And that's something I think a lot of us forget, and it will cost you business. And this little, these people are gossiping. It's so much fun to gossip about people. It's so much fun to talk about people. But what that does is it introduces fear, at least for me. When I am sitting around a group of people and they're talking about someone else, it's super fun. And then I walk away and I think, Wonder what they're saying about me. And it makes me afraid to share things with them. So if you're that person that's always talking about other people, know that when they walk away, they're thinking, I wonder what she's saying about me. And that is not an ideal way to build relationships. So it's that old thing we learned in school, is it kind? Is it true? Is it helpful? If it's none of those things, consider just keeping your mouth shut. And keyboard warriors, right? Talk about social media, talk about emails. Sometimes we get an email and it just tweaks us the wrong way. And I do anyways. All of a sudden I get this hit of adrenaline and my face gets red and I'm like, yeah. And I want to hit the send button. And I'm like, if I hit the send button, am I going to burn a bridge that I will never walk across again? Should I wait 5 minutes? Should I wait 10 minutes? Should I wait till tomorrow? And I close the lid and I put it in my drafts folder and I walk away and I come back the next day and I come back with something much more diplomatic and elegant. And the same thing with social media. Everyone sees when you notice people. Everyone sees when you're a jerk. If you've got a really big opinion about something and that person's an idiot, blah, 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 guess what? The whole world just saw you dump on that person. You then become the person that could dump on them if they're not careful, right? So maybe that's their friend. So just really be careful who you talk about and how you say it. Kindness counts. So people remember how you treat them. They talk to each other about it. They make decisions about what they're going to purchase, where they're going to go based on that. So you want to be the person that people say good things about. You want to be the person that when you're not in the room, people are thinking, oh man, that Monica, she's super awesome. She's super nice. She never says anything bad about anyone. And quick recap, because I know we're running out of time. Oh, the cake picture again. Kelly, I'm sorry. I know
hungry.
You're on your way to the bakery when this is over.
This must be a sponsored webinar by some company that sells cake.
Duncan Hines or something. Yeah.
Yes.
So remember that cake to icing ratio, right? Just a little sprinkle of business in everything you do, even when you're at those networking events, because I still go to them, but I don't just talk about business. I ask people real questions. What's going on in your life? What do you love about your business? What's your challenge this year? Like, ask real authentic questions. People notice people who notice them, right? So be that person that pays attention to what other people are doing. Build your neighborhood, because your business is only as strong as your community and your industry. So don't do stuff because you're getting something out of it. Do something because you're adding value to other people's lives. And I don't know, do I have time for this? 10:50. I think maybe I'll wrap it up here because we've only got 10 minutes to go. I just had a little blurb to tell you about how awesome introverts are, how the research says that, introverts are as successful as extroverts in business. And I'm going to just quickly run through it and just say that the real power that introverts have, look at the research, is they speak less and they talk more. And sometimes that seems like a weakness, but that ability to listen deeply, to ask deep questions. When you ask the deep questions, you get the answers. And when you get the answers, you can solve problems for people. And if you can be a problem solver for people, that will take you lots of places. So thanks for listening. Thanks for having me. And I'm going to just open up the floor to both of you in case there's questions or things going on. And I think Tom has some housekeeping items. So
I do. I've got a couple things to close with. This was so valuable. I think just your point at the very beginning around be yourself is so important, because I think it's really easy to look at a topic like this. And I thought this a little bit. You're going to show introverts how they can act like an extrovert, right? Because it's going to be networking and getting out there. And even though, as Kelly said, there are times you do things that are uncomfortable, it's still about being your authentic self.
Yeah.
And I think the other one really big takeaway for me is that sort of you're always networking. And so when you're delivering work, that's one thing, but it's also out in the community and maybe as much about how you treat people as the technical skill set that you might bring to your role. And I can think of people with, handymen that don't show up when they're supposed to. And you're like, they could be the best in the world, but when they don't call me back and they don't do these other things, those become really important for what I do. So that's valuable.
And to that point, it works in reverse too, right? So you can be as good as you can at your job, but if you don't show up and you don't follow through, then it's good. But the other thing is you can be the best networker in the world, but if you're not good at your job, you're not going to keep those clients. Like, you still got to be really good at what you do for all this stuff to work.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, so we didn't have any questions come in, but Tom's going to do some wrap-up slides, and if anyone has any questions, please put them in the questions box, and we do have a few minutes, so we can try to briefly answer those if anything comes up.
Yeah. If you'll put up that first question or the first slide. So we do hope that, so someone asked if they missed polling question 3. We did do all 3 polling questions, and most people did answer those.
One thing though, just so while we're talking about the podcast, this is the podcast slide. So to speak on that, I had that question come up a lot if somebody does miss a poll question. And just so you guys know, we do, the podcast and our webinars are all being rebroadcast to Earmark CPE platform. So if for some reason you're here and didn't get, miss one of the questions, or if you're listening to our podcast anyway, check out Earmark CPE, because in that app, you can get CPE credit for any of our podcast episodes and any of our webinars if you can't make it for the live webinar or miss out for some reason.
Yeah, thanks, Kelly. So you can see the slide if you would like to keep learning. So we know a lot of people are here, some for CPE, some because they like the topic and want to learn. I hope everyone wants to learn. We have a really good podcast. You can find this on YouTube. So you will hear from clients, you'll hear from people within our company, you hear from vendors, things related to the CPA profession. I think that can be a really nice avenue.
I can speak to that, Tom. I was a guest on the podcast a couple of weeks ago. You have
Excellent.
an amazing set
I
of
think it actually just came out.
Amazing questions. And I listened to a few episodes ahead of time and I was like, this is really good. So
good. Thank you. Okay, so if we could then jump into the next one. So getting connected. So we talked about volunteering, joining, things like that. We actually have a community. So in the area of Slack, we have a community where accountants can join and talk about different topics that we have. Kelly hosts a book club. Kelly hosts a marketing channel. We have a book club. We've got CFO community. CPAs ask questions. They share information. We moderate that. So we hope that people would be interested. You can get a free month access to check that out yourself, and we would hope people would do that. Kelly, I do see a question that someone maybe already answered it. People asked for a link to what you had said. Okay.
Yeah. So that was a great question. I'll in our follow-up email that we send out, usually it's by tomorrow, by the end of the day. Sometimes it goes later if something comes up, but I will include a link to Earmark CPE in there for you guys.
Great. Thank you. Okay. I mentioned that I do virtual CFO work. On the next slide, you'll see that if that sounds of interest to you, we have a really good course that we're excited about. So 15 different modules. It's fairly intensive, but it goes through essentially everything that we do to deliver CFO services to clients. This is something you can go through. Like I said, it's everything from our pricing and marketing and how we run meetings and everything that we do. That does come as you complete the course with a free 1-hour coaching session that we'll do. So if someone says, I went through this, now I want to do it, here are my questions, we do that. You get free books, it's a free subscription to that community. We also have a once per week meeting. Other people can come in and join. We have multiple firms coming in who have done the course, and we talk about how things are going. It is a community that people can then join. And I think there's some peer pressure maybe from, other people are getting out and doing the social media kinds of things that Monica talked about. They're advertising, I should be doing that. I feel like I'm still sitting and thinking about that. I'm trying to find my niche. And so we'll review different ones and say, is this one that's going to work out? Why do you want to be in it? Things like that. And so this is a once a week opportunity. So if you have interest in doing the virtual CFO work, I think this is a great way to really jumpstart yourself into doing that. Okay. And then finally, what I'll say is we are hiring like many firms. So if what I described sounds really interesting to you, you're saying, I don't want to launch this myself, Monica, you'll see on the next slide, you can join us and do that. And so we have figured out a way that we try to do that. Monica mentioned putting systems in place. We've done that to deliver that to clients. So if you're saying, I don't think I want to do this on my own, I want to join someone doing that, please check us out and see if it looks as it's interesting to you. Monica, thank you very much for the topic today. Really good conversation. Kelly, thanks for joining. This was really good.
Want to make one last plug for Monica and her book. So if you guys are interested in this topic, make sure you check out Overcoming Awkward. It's available on Amazon. Definitely worth the read.
Sounds great. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Monica.
So much for having me. Awesome.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.